Promotions presents highlights from the Rothmans World Superbike Championship round.
World Superbike Championship leader David Tardozzi, chased by blonde American Fred Merkel and Italian Fabrizio Pirovano. These are the players for the final act of the 1988 World Superbike Championship.
And so, after 8 exciting rounds, the 9th and final event of the inaugural World Superbike Championship comes south to Manfield, New Zealand. The circuit, which was built 14 years ago, measures 3.03 kilometres and comprises 3 very fast straights, a set of S's, followed by a very tricky left-hand hairpin in the centre of it. The long front straight winds down here where riders take a wide line from your right-hand side of the screen into the first of the right-hand corners, accelerating very hard out of this, up through 2 gears, through a continuous right-hand corner, leaning right over it around 50 degrees before they come into the infield hairpin. 2 gear changes down through this hairpin, hard to the left, and then coming up to the infield hairpin. The apex is taken very tight as they enter the middle straight and reach speeds of somewhere around 125 miles per hour into a very fast sweeping right-hander, which has a very early cut-off point to the centre, but riders ride right to the high part of the banking as they head into the back straight. It's a long way down, and the top speeds of the World Superbike riders of today will be somewhere in the vicinity of 145 to 150 miles an hour. From here on, it's down through the gears, a dab on the front brakes, a wide line into the right-hander, and this is a very, very tricky corner. It actually comes back on itself. They sweep right to the left-hand side of the circuit and then clip the apex and back onto the start-finish straight once again. A total distance, 3.03 kilometres. With just 2 races remaining here at Manfield in the World Superbike Championship, David Tardozzi of Italy leads the points on the Italian Bimota with 86. Tying in second position on 83.5 points is the 3 times American Superbike champion Fred Merkel on a Honda, with the very talented Italian Fabrizio Pirovano on a Yamaha in second equal. In 4th position, we have the Belgian rider Stefan Mertens. This is the teammate for Tardozzi. He's on 75.5, just marginally ahead of the Italian and former world champion Marco Lucanelli on 64, riding a Ducati. The Frenchman Alex Vieira on a Honda is 6th with 42 points. And in 7th position, we have the English rider Roger Burnett on 31.5 on the RC30 Honda. 5 times World Formula 1 champion Joey Dunlop sits on 30 points in 8th position, with the very talented Australian Michael Doohan, winner of the last 2 races in Australia, moves from 20th to 8th with 30 points. And the riders to look for the victory dies here at Manfield today, 29-year-old Italian David Tardozzi riding the very potent Bimota Yamaha and the series points leader. Malcolm Campbell from Australia, the former national champion, riding one of the very quick RC30 750 Hondas, certainly a man being in there to shake the points along. 3 times American Superbike champion, also on a Honda, Freddie Merkel, and a man who could well walk away from the meeting today as the first ever World Superbike champion. The find of the series this year, 21-year-old English rider Terry Reimer, also on a Honda RC30, and he'll be well and truly looking for those points this afternoon. The fastest of the New Zealanders, Andrew Stroud, riding for the first time the Bimota Yamaha, and a man who qualified just 0.7 of a second slower than David Tardozzi on the Works Bimota. Gary Goodfellow, 4 times Canadian champion, expatriate New Zealander, and a man with a very, very historic racing career behind him, and he'll certainly be a man that could well be looking at that checkered flag this afternoon.
Well, it's going to be difficult depending on the weather. The wind and the rains will pose sort of a problem. We've been lucky so far with no rain.
Well, I think it's going to be fast and furious. Like the guys that are going dicing for the World Championship are going to be going for it. It'll be good for the spectators to watch. It won't be so good for the guys that are trying to win.
Oh, man, Brian, it's going to be really, really exciting today. I'm looking forward to getting out there and running with those front runners. A little bit down on power personally, but I don't know. I think I can make up for it on the braking and on the infield after today's effort.
Che tipo di corsa ti aspetti domani e che tipo di corsa pensi di fare?
Che voi due vi scornate e dopo io vado.
Fabrizio thinks that tomorrow there is a big fight with me and Fred Merkel, and he expects that we crashed and he wins. I think that with the engine, the best engine
aspect of superbike racing is that the machines must look like those in the shop window. The enthusiast can buy a machine which looks more or less identical to the ones being raced here at Manfield this weekend. There are certain things, however, that can be modified on the machines to give them the competitive edge which we've seen so effectively this weekend. First of all, wider rims can be fitted to the machines to give the rider the choice of high-performance tyres needed to cope with the speeds of over 250 kilometres an hour. And in conjunction with that, different suspension units can be added to deal with the bumps at much higher speeds. To aid the performance of the engine, special sports exhaust pipes are fitted, and within the engine itself there are certain modifications which can be made to give extra horsepower, bolt-on performance kits, but they must be authorised and available over the counter to get rid of any exclusivity which may creep into it. The brakes obviously have to be upgraded as well in order to deal with the extra speeds, and this is a fine illustration of how that is done. But basically the machine must appear the same as the one that the enthusiast can buy in the showroom, and I think that Honda Australia have prepared this bike beautifully for the final World Championship round, and I'm sure Malcolm Campbell's going to give his best on this machine, the Honda RC30. So let's just take a quick look at how they line up on the grid, and here's row 1. And just half a second separates the top 5 of Tardozzi, Campbell, Merkel, Mertens and Reimer. Rob Phillips heads row 2 alongside Pirvano, Stroud, Goodfellow and Andy McGladdery from England. Canadian Tommy Douglas performed well in 11th, with Australian Robert Scollier and Kiwi Glenn Williams. And finally, local riders Sean Harris and Mike King going well on row 4.
This is bike number 2, that of the series points leader, David Tardozzi of Italy. And you can see there that the slick tyres are being removed from the machine and the rain tyres have been fitted when we look at the dark clouds coming over from the back of the circuit. Joining us in the commentary position today is Andrew McKinnon.
Yes, well, after emerging from the dummy grid on a mixture of wet and dry tyres, everyone has elected to go on to full wet tyres, which means that they're all in similar condition and should be able to adapt to the conditions very well.
The light goes green, and who's getting the fire of the start coming through from the second row is Andrew Stroud. The New Zealander leads the World Championship round into the first turn. Robbie Phillips comes through from the second row to move up on the inside there. We've already got a retirement New Zealander. Robert Holden is out of the race on a warm-up lap, but alongside Phillips, of course, we've got the flying young Italian there, bike number 7, Fabrizio Pirovano.
This is no surprise at all. Pirovano has emerged as the very best starter in the championship, and on top of that, he loves the wet conditions. He won at Le Mans in similar conditions, and so it should be of no surprise to us to see Pirovano leading Phyllis around the infield hairpin.
Phyllis looks for the lineup on the inside there, out-accelerates Pirovano, Kawasaki versus Yamaha, but the Italian comes back again, but Phyllis is having a look over his shoulder and certainly putting paid to this. Number 7, right up alongside Phyllis there, Pirovano. Back then to 37 we have is Tommy Douglas from Canada. That is Andy McGladdery from Great Britain trailing them around. But Phyllis is very much on wet ground here as he accelerates down the back straight, reaching speeds somewhere in the vicinity of 140 miles an hour and into the very fast right-hand sweeper. Back to the straight, completing lap number 1. We're looking for Merkel. He's way back in about 7th or 8th position.
Phyllis was saying just a few minutes before the off that he would prefer it to be dry, doesn't like the wet. Well, he's obviously destroying that theory at the moment. Gary Goodfellow there in third position. Now, he was a winner at Japan in the pouring rain as well, having made a tyre stop. And so we've got Pirovano and Goodfellow, two wet weather specialists, right up there with the action.
Goodfellow's been talking about a wet race all weekend, and behind that big smile of his, I think that he was secretly hoping it was going to rain.
To turn a finished film into perfect prints, you...
In 8th position, so there's a real battle going on midfield positions there for the actual championship chase. At this stage, though, Pirovano obviously leading the title chase by virtue of his 2nd position on the road.
Comes as no surprise to see, Merkel getting a little out of shape there, applying the brakes as they come into the sweeper, taking them into the back straight. He's picked himself up 1 position, but certainly the RC30 Honda getting a little out of shape there as Merkel was lining up the curve.
Phyllis, handsome lead at this stage. He's got quite a comfortable gap, which is a real advantage in these sort of conditions. Pirovano still 2nd, and Goodfellow hanging in there in 3rd.
This really is quite a surprise to see Phyllis. He's done very, very well in the Superbike races that he's run this year, and he's no stranger to Manfield. Goodfellow still in there in 3rd, and there's Merkel coming through into 4th position. He's a man with a mission today. He needs those points so desperately as he comes in on the inside of McGladrey. This is 7. Pirovano from Italy on the Yamaha. Back to Gary Goodfellow from New Zealand. The American Merkel.
Already Merkel will have had a board to say that Pirovano is ahead of him, and this is obviously giving him the hurry up. And I would imagine that within a couple of laps we'll see him right up there at the head of the field. Good rider in the wet. Always looks to be out of control, but I can assure you that he thrives on throwing the machine about and controlling back wheel slides and whatever. Closing up now on Goodfellow, as we can see on camera, with Tommy Douglas there in 5th position.
Merkel certainly cannot afford to let Pirovano get a points advantage of him. This is a very, very important race. Accelerating down the back straight. The American sets himself up for the sweeping right-hander, down 2 gears, knee scraping on the ground, beautiful style there. Hard on the throttle, up through the gears, and back into the start-finish straight. 32, it's still Phyllis from Albury, Wodonga in Australia. Tiny little man, Fabrizio Pirovano, very strongly in 2nd position. Gary Goodfellow of New Zealand holding down 3rd ahead of the American Merkel.
Merkel's deficit from Phyllis is about 4 seconds at the moment, so we'll have to keep our eyes on the stopwatches. Pirovano about a 2nd adrift. Clear illustration there of how slippery the track surface is on some of the bends.
Manfield with camber degrees varying between 4 and 9. It's a circuit that doesn't hold the water too much, but while the rain's not falling heavily at this stage, it's certainly done its damage. Pirovano down through the gears.
But it's still Phyllis controlling things at the head of the field. Just to bring us up to date with the 5th to 7th positions, Tommy Douglas, the young Canadian rider, a racing school instructor, so it's a bit of a busman's holiday here in New Zealand for him. He occupies 5th, Scollier 6th from Australia, and Tardozzi now in 7th position as we look at the current leader, Phyllis, coming under pressure at the infield hairpin from Pirovano, Goodfellow and Merkel. There we have a fine shot, all 4 of them. Who would predict a winner here? And Merkel's making a move. Merkel's moved up to 3rd position. He got the better of Goodfellow there as they approach the end of the Concord Straight.
3.03 kilometres here at Manfield, 34 laps. And Merkel's not biding time. He's allowed himself time to settle down. Pirovano, though, still up there in 2nd position, tailing the Australian Robbie Phyllis. Gary Goodfellow goes back to 4th. But he'll be looking to stay in touch, and there's Pirovano getting a little out of shape as he turns the power on the Yamaha. A little bit of sidestep there, but the Italian very much in control. And there is Merkel lurking down on the Italian.
You can almost see the grin through Merkel's, and he's lifted his visor. He could have a problem here. Merkel's obviously got a misted visor, and that won't help his championship chances. He's riding with the air rushing onto his face now, and indeed the spray. You can see on camera the misting of the visor, so just how he copes with that will remain to be seen.
Certainly at these speeds and in these conditions, Merkel can't afford to have anything go wrong.
Championship update. Pirovano 92, Merkel 91, Tardozzi 90.5. What a build-up to the final leg in little over an hour's time. It's absolutely marvellously pitched. Merkel doesn't seem to be being worried by that visor problem, but could have been a scare for him.
He's flicking it up and down, so perhaps in the long straightaways where he really needs it to keep the rain from his face, he's pulling the visor down, and on the slower turns he's giving it a flick up just to allow some air through there, but I'm sure that he's got a lot of other things on his mind and certainly did not predict the misting visor, but he's coming in on Pirovano. He's honing in closer, just picking his knee up there over the curbing.
Merkel's problem would tend to suggest that his race preparation may have gone a little wrong here. Modern-day riders, they normally put a bit of duct tape or some other device over their nostrils to divert the hot air out of the bottom of the helmet and not up onto the visor. Pirovano there I saw wiping the front of his visor as well. They're all having problems, apart from Phyllis, who of course has the advantage of leading and not contending with spray.
Pirovano is now actually starting to close on Phyllis. The four of them now, there would not be 1 second covering the first four riders. It goes Phyllis, Kawasaki, Pirovano, Yamaha, Merkel, Honda, and Goodfellow, Honda.
This, of course, is what superbike racing was designed for. We've had some fantastic races in the 8 previous countries. None better than this at this stage, I would suggest. Just look at that as they reach the end of the Concord Straight. Pirovano trying everything he can to get past Phyllis. Merkel hanging in there despite a misting visor, and Gary Goodfellow in the knowledge that he can win in the rain in 4th position there.
Pirovano having a crack at Phyllis, moves up on the inside and takes him very, very close together. The Italian on the inside, the Australian Phyllis on the outside, and we have a new race leader, Fabrizio Pirovano of Italy, and there's Merkel. He's hounding in on Phyllis now. Pirovano starting to move away, and Gary Goodfellow's in on the chase as well. There's Merkel on the inside. He moves now up into 2nd position.
Absolutely brilliant stuff. The New Zealand fans are really fortunate here. They've got a fantastic grandstand finish, and the rain hasn't spoilt the action. Here we go into the replay as we see Pirovano showing his bravery here. He leaves his braking later into the end of the back straight, just goes through on the inside of Phyllis, hangs on. A nicely executed move, but probably a risky one in these sort of conditions.
And there's Merkel. Merkel has taken Pirovano, our 2nd new race leader, in the first heat of the final round of the World Superbike Championship. It's being led by the 3 times American Superbike champion, Freddie Merkel. Pirovano, 5 lengths back in 2nd position. Then we go back to the earlier race leader, Robbie Phyllis of Australia, and Gary Goodfellow of New Zealand having a massive battle down there for 3rd and 4th position. And Goodfellow has taken Phyllis.
What a slide there from Pirovano, all sideways as they come onto the start-finish straight. Breathtaking stuff, and we're only 9 laps into the race. A long way to go yet, and they've got to keep upright. Half-point lead over Pirovano. He holds 93.5 points at this stage. Pirovano 92, Tardozzi 91.5. It couldn't be closer.
Meantime, Merkel still continues to build on his lead. There's Goodfellow moving right in closer now. He's gathered up a good 4 bike lengths on him. He's looking for that drive out of the straight in front of his home crowd, who are going absolutely hysterical here for the New Zealander. What a wonderful return for him.
Closer this time. Mum and Dad, Shirley and Les, of course, in the grandstand today. They don't get much chance to see that. And Goodfellow's made it. He's through. Well, just as we were saying a couple of minutes ago, I rather felt that he was weighing up the situation. Beautifully executed overtaking manoeuvre there moves him up to 2nd place, and that, of course, alters the points permutations.
That was a brilliant move, as you say. He's been sitting back, lining it up. This is it in slow motion. Goodfellow, number 11, on the outside. Pirovano, number 7 on the Yamaha, running 2nd and 3rd respectively on the road at the moment. Look at the line of Goodfellows. That passing manoeuvre was on before the corner even started.
So as we go back to the action, Goodfellow now in second place, and let's just have a look at what that means to the over. But Pirovano coming back here. Pirovano at the end of the straight. No, Goodfellow's trying to hold his ground. What a battle this is for second place. Oh, it's breathtaking. Look, just look at the distance between Pirovano's rear wheel and Goodfellow's front. This is hairy stuff in these conditions.
Goodfellow had to pick that up then.
So it's as you were, Pirovano back in second. We're having to rewrite the championship update almost every half lap there. Pirovano back in second, Goodfellow third, and what a slide there. Goodfellow got it back under control, but all over the place.
He's coming back at him, though. He's definitely coming back. Pirovano's a little scrapper as well. Both these two men, ex-motocrossers, and now they come across each other in the World Superbike Championship. There's Goodfellow taking a much tighter line, exiting that corner, and you can see the gap, how Pirovano sprung out about 2 or 3 bike lengths on him.
There's the replay. Breathtaking stuff at the end of the back straight. Pirovano really sticks it up Goodfellow here. Goodfellow trying to hold the line on the outside. Look at the gap between Pirovano's rear wheel and Goodfellow's front wheel. Pirovano manages to hang on, but really breathtaking stuff on a rain-soaked track. Merkel has started his last lap. He's 3.3 kilometres from a famous first leg victory here, which will put a broad grin on that handsome Californian face of his. He knows he's just got to cruise round, and he'll have a fairly useful, although tight, advantage over Pirovano and Tardozzi, Brian.
Yes, and I'm sure that the many thousands of spectators here at Manfield are waiting for Merkel's victory wheelie down the infield straight. He really is a flamboyant person, both on and off the circuit, although, as you can understand, he was a very serious man this morning. He, as he said, I've got a bit of work to do in the office this afternoon, and I'll catch you later on.
So, a little more than half a lap to go now for Merkel. He's through the Concord straight, onto the back straight. He'll be feeling very, very good at this stage. That's Terry Reimer. Pirovano still in second place. Goodfellow right up his exhaust pipes as they come onto the back straight. And here's the leader, Merkel. Merkel, how well he might punch the air. That's a fantastic first leg victory, and that puts him into the championship lead. There's no doubt about that. He's delighted with that. And here we are. Here's the battle for second and third. Pirovano holds the advantage, but what's Goodfellow going to do? No, Pirovano's got it. Pirovano's got it. And just look at Merkel, stood up on the foot pegs. Brilliant scenes here. Mertens now, because of the mathematics involved, cannot win the World Championship, so we're down to a 3-horse race, although having seen that first leg, one would suggest that it's perhaps going to be a 1-horse race, Brian.
And so there's the results. In first place, number 27, Freddie Merkel from the United States, 17.6 seconds ahead of the Italian Fabrizio Pirovano on the Yamaha, with New Zealander Gary Goodfellow returning to his home ground for the first time in 12 months, 17.7 seconds behind Merkel. Just look at the gap, just 1/10 of a second between himself and Pirovano. Robbie Phillips took 4th position in the race, 45 seconds. He dropped back quite considerably in the latter stages. In 5th place went to the Italian Tardozzi, who of course we mentioned was in 3rd position in the World Championship with just 1 heat remaining. And in 6th position, the Belgian Stefan Mertens, who moved across to let Tardozzi gain those extra points.
So with that win by Merkel, what does that mean to the World Championship positions with just 1 leg remaining? Fred Merkel holds position number 1 with 93.5 points from Fabrizio Pirovano on 92. David Tardozzi is in 3rd position on 91.5. In 4th position, Stefan Mertens from Belgium on 80.5. 5th is held by Marco Lucinelli from Italy on 64, and 6th place the Frenchman Alex Vieira on 42.
Coverage from the Rothmans World Superbike Championship round was presented in association with Global Sports and Promotions.
Nice gentle turn in, and he's just squeezing the power on gently, and he's well aware of the fact.
Presents highlights from the Rothmans World Superbike Championship round.
For the last and vital round of the inaugural World Superbike Championship, it's Manfield, New Zealand. The circuit measuring a total distance of 3.03 kilometres. It comprises 3 very fast straights, a set of S's in the middle and a tricky hairpin. Overall, it's a very demanding circuit on riders and machines. The long front straight winds down here where riders take a wide line from your right-hand side of the screen into the first of the right-hand corners, accelerating very hard out of this, up through 2 gears, through a continuous right-hand corner, leaning right over at around 50 degrees before they come into the infield hairpin. 2 gear changes down through this hairpin, hard to the left, and then coming up to the infield hairpin. The apex is taken very tight as they enter the middle straight and reach speeds of somewhere around 125 miles per hour into a very fast sweeping right-hander, which has a very early cut-off point to the centre, but riders ride right to the high part of the banking as they head into the back straight. It's a long way down, and the top speeds of the World Superbike riders of today will be somewhere in the vicinity of 145 to 150 miles an hour. From here on, it's down through the gears, a dab on the front brakes, a wide line into the right-hander, and this is a very, very tricky corner. It actually comes back on itself. They sweep right to the left-hand side of the circuit and then clip the apex and back onto the start-finish straight once again. A total distance, 3.03 kilometres.
So with one race to go, these are the World Championship standings. In first position, Fred Merkel on 93.5. In second position, Fabrizio Pirovano on 92. In third, David Tardozzi on 91.5. Fourth position is held by Stefan Mertens from Belgium on 80.5. Fifth by the Italian Marco Lucinelli on 64. And sixth place, the Frenchman Alex Vieira on 42.
And the riders to look for the victory dies here at Manfield today. 29-year-old Italian David Tardozzi riding the very potent Bimota Yamaha, 3 times American Superbike champion. Also on a Honda, Freddie Merkel, and a man who could well walk away from the meeting today as the first ever World Superbike champion. Gary Goodfellow, 4 times Canadian champion, expatriate New Zealander, and a man with a very, very historic racing career behind him. And he'll certainly be a man that could well be looking at that checkered flag this afternoon. Adding to the prestige of the World Superbike Championship is the display of the 75th Royal New Zealand Air Force Squadron for the bicentennial demonstration.
Close look to see how long the undercarriage is on the A4. That's because it's a naval aircraft designed to land on seaborne carriers. Here they come. Let's see if they do the barrel roll. Yep, it looks like they're going to do it, folks. That is the only formation aerobatics team in the world that you'll see do this manoeuvre, folks. So it's a real special one. How about that?
During the afternoon, the rain got even worse, but by the start of the second race, it had stopped. However, there were still large puddles on the track, and as the riders gathered on the grid, tyre choice became even more difficult. So let's just take a quick look at how they line up on the grid, and here's row 1. And just half a second separates the top 5 of Tardozzi, Campbell, Merkel, Mertens and Reimer. Rob Phillips heads row 2 alongside Pirvano, Stroud, Goodfellow and Andy McGladdery from England. Canadian Tommy Douglas performed well in 11th, with Australian Robert Scollier and Kiwi Glenn Williams. And finally, local riders Sean Harris and Mike King going well on row 4.
This is David Tardozzi, the man who's in with a chance for the World Championship here at Manfield today. On the first of the warm-up laps, he has crashed the Bimota in the S's.
Absolutely sensational stuff. Tardozzi has scaled the trackside barrier and walked back to the pit lane, and as you can see from the damage to the bike, his race is over. And it could have, obviously it's down to a wrong choice of tyres. The first real hard test for those tyres, and they were intermediate tyres, Andy went down. What a sensational start to the concluding leg of the World Superbike Championship.
This certainly must take, Andrew, a fair amount of pressure off Freddie Merkel, who really alarmingly, I notice, is on a full set of wets while most of the others are on intermediates and dries.
That's right, Brian. It's down to 2 men now. Only Merkel or the Italian Pirvano can win this title. Fred Merkel, as you've just explained, has quite incredibly decided to stay with full wet tyres, and only the next 34 laps will tell whether that is a well-paid gamble.
And the lights go green and Merkel gets a good start. Alongside him we've got from Belgium Stefan Mertens as they head down the straight and into the first turn there. There's 27 Merkel. Number 6 is Mertens. We're looking for Terry Reimer. He was a good front row starter. Exiting the first turn, there's Merkel. A full set of wets. The circuit's still quite damp as he heads into the S's. A man who spent the last hour and a half psyching himself up. In behind him, number 7, of course, that's the other man in contention, Fabrizio Pirvano from Italy on the Yamaha.
So it's as we were almost at the end of the first leg. Merkel hoping that the racing line doesn't dry out too much during these opening laps and indeed for the rest of the race. Pirvano in hot pursuit. So here we are at the end of the Concord Straight. It's Merkel, Pirvano and Phillips in 3rd position.
This is certainly going to be interesting because if the circuit does stay damp and Merkel gets a reasonable sort of a gap there, he's going to have then to contend with Tardozzi, who's going to be on slicks and going to be in with a better chance. But however, the American is a very experienced man, and we trust with the assistance of his chief engineer, Norris Farrow, that he has not made the worst choice of his career. Already they're back into the start-finish, and Merkel is flying. The man who set fastest lap of the race in the earlier heat and the wet conditions.
Interesting to note that Pirvano has also elected to stay on full wets. So 1st and 2nd positions are on full wet tyres, and at the moment that looks like the right choice. Although, as we've said, the track is going to dry as this late afternoon sunshine begins to burn onto the tarmac.
Well, Merkel pulling a big tank slapper coming out of the S's there. So too is Pirvano. These boys are very, very hard at work. Robbie Phillips in 3rd position. Then we go back to Andy McGladdery, I think it is, in 4th spot. This is Merkel, a man who really doesn't have a reputation for being a super starter, but he certainly charges back up to regain any lost ground at the start. But it was a copybook start this time, Andrew.
Absolutely. We were scratching our heads looking at that grid there. But Fred Merkel's got 21 years of experience, and he probably knew something we didn't about the track surface and its effect on wet tyres.
Already Merkel, 2.06 seconds out in front. Robbie Phillips, the man that led the first heat for a number of laps, is in there in 3rd position. So far, Phillips finished 4th. He's certainly made a name for himself in the World Superbike Championship this year, along with fellow countryman Malcolm Campbell.
See quite visibly there, Brian, the track is drying out. It's wet and dry, and Merkel will have to look for the puddles later in this race to keep that rubber compound as cool as possible.
With the corners varying at the degree angles that they have between 4 and 9 degrees, Manfield will dry out rather quickly, with the exception of the straights, which for some reason seem to take a little longer to dry out. Pirvano's Yamaha twitching under acceleration coming out of the S's as he approaches the hairpin. There's Merkel in front of him.
What we're seeing here may well be a fault situation if the track does dry out too dramatically. This early advantage could be very quickly eroded by the boys carrying slick and intermediate tyres. So we'll have to keep tabs on the situation as the laps go down.
Pirvano entering the back straight. You notice once again that unusual style. It's a semi-lay-down sit-up style. Doesn't seem to ever really tuck his head down behind the windscreen. Of course, the reason they're sitting up under brakes is to use the body as an air brake system. Pirovano very smooth through there this time, but Merkel's gone.
The positions as they stand at the moment make it quite easy to keep tabs on this World Championship outcome. We were rather worried about the permutations before the second leg got underway, but if Merkel and Pirovano stay 1 and 2, obviously Merkel takes the title. If they're reversed, we have a tie situation, and then we have to start looking back through the results to see who has the best backup statistics. At the moment, for the record, Merkel has 2 wins, 1 in Hungary and 1 in the first leg here. Pirovano has just 1 win from Le Mans in France.
Robbie Phillips still there in 3rd position at the moment. Merkel just easing the power on, driving it smoothly out of the corner, keeping everything as smooth as he possibly can. And of course, this is one of the exceptional qualities of this young man from California. He can be very aggressive, but of course the mood must change when the wet comes on. He must apply the power smoothly. He must be very, very gentle on the motorcycle, both entering and exiting the corners, and in particular under brakes.
There's the gap, the whole of the start-finish straight. And the leading positions at the moment, Merkel first, Pirovano second. Tommy Douglas, the young Canadian, having a fine ride in 3rd, and there he is. 4th is Gary Goodfellow, 5th Rob Phillips, and 6th Stefan Mertens, of course the only Bermotor rider, or the only factory Bermotor rider in the race as a result of that incredible warm-up lap incident. So there's Tommy Douglas on his way to 3rd position at the moment, Brian. Fred Merkel through the start-finish area and around turn 1 before we even see Pirovano coming into view. A graphic illustration there of how he's stretching this field.
Certainly, as you can see, the matte finish on the circuit, which is drying, and it's certainly, they're getting bigger and bigger all the time. Merkel gets faster, the track gets drier.
Here's a good scrap developing for 3rd place. Gary Goodfellow now up to 3rd. Tommy Douglas relinquished 3rd, he's now lying 4th, and the 5th Met place man is also closing up, so a good scrap downfield here developing.
I think Goodfellow is really going to be calling on a tremendous amount of his experience and a trump card from under those leathers if he has any hopes of catching Pirovano. This is Malcolm Campbell, the Australian, the Team Honda Australia RC30, openly admitted after the first heat, I just made the wrong choice of tyres.
Has he made a wrong choice again, Brian? He's languishing well downfield, just in front of Mertens there. We're used to seeing Malcolm higher than this. He qualified in 2nd position and really had high hopes for this meeting, but it's been a bit of a disappointment so far. The first leg, he only finished 11th, and he's not going to be on the rostrum this time at this stage.
Well, he was only 0.2 of a second slower than Tardozzi, and around about 6/100ths of a second faster than Merkel, and it is most unusual to see this popular Australian so far down. But this is Fred Merkel, hard at work in the office, as he would put it. 13 seconds, that's incredible, and a further 24 back to Goodfellow, so that puts Goodfellow 11 seconds behind Pirovano. That's a tall task to pull back.
Pirovano will be getting a bit demoralised now, I think. He'll see Merkel disappearing at the end of Concord Straight each time and around, almost doubling back on him before he comes into view. And so he's really got to work hard and motivate himself if we're going to have a fight on our hands in this race.
See Terry Reimer from the United Kingdom back there in 9th position, obviously still plagued with the pain of a hand injury suffered during his crash yesterday afternoon.
Let's just watch Merkel through that final corner. Keep our eyes on that rear slick. Is it stable? Yes, it seems to be operating fine there as he slips through under a back marker. Obviously still quite happy with the way the bike is handling. Quick update, after 10 laps, Merkel leads, Pirovano 2nd, Goodfellow 3rd, Douglas in 4th, Phillips and Mertens. So it's as you were, and still this man destroying the opposition. This will have been curtailed a little. He'll be under no pressure now to increase the speed he's going at. And here's the battle for, well, there's Perovano going through in second position, and Goodfellow there, just in camera, is it? No, Goodfellow seems to have dropped off a little bit. Here he comes. Here's Goodfellow. Thought he was going to be chasing Perovano a bit harder than that, but obviously had probably a bit of trouble with back markers. So Goodfellow through down towards the infield section.
We've basically got Merkel out in front, the length of the front straight to Perovano, the same length back to Goodfellow, and Robbie Phillips from Australia still holding down fourth position at this point. A marvellous battle going on further down the field there with Malcolm Campbell from Australia, Stefan Mertens from Belgium on the Bimota, Tadotzi's teammate, of course, and tucked in behind him and really snapping at his heels is the Campbell's fellow Australian teammate, Rob Scollier.
Here we are, back on the leader, though. Merkel flashes through the start and finish straight. Still completely happy with the compound he's running on the back. Looks fairly steady through turn one. Steady as a rock, in fact. No problems there, so Norris Farrow can keep the spare rubber propped firmly against the pit wall as Merkel shows the style of a champion through the infield section. Just a halfway stage update. Merkel leads from Perovano, Goodfellow, and Malcolm Campbell moving well through the field in fourth position now, ahead of Stefan Mertens and Campbell's brother-in-law and teammate Rob Scollier from Honda Australia. Just a look there at the 7th to 9th positions. Phyllis, Douglas and Reimer, they're all fairly well adrift, but they'll be satisfied with another good points haul. So here we are, back on the race leader, Fred Merkel, all the time in the world. His first World Superbike Championship title in sight, comfortably making his way through the back of the field. Look at that battle there, with Malcolm Campbell leading the freight train through the infield.
This is grand stuff. We're really seeing Campbell now. He's working very hard. Got Tommy Douglas in there, Schollier's in there, Andy McGladdery. This is true superbike racing that we've seen in the 8 previous rounds. Malcolm Campbell on 3, Stefan Mertens from Belgium on the Bimota, and then we go back to 12 as Scollier, 18 is Andy McGladdery from the United Kingdom, and then we've got Robert Dunlop there, Andrew, having his best ride for quite some time.
That's right, he had a duff ignition in training yesterday afternoon and was very worried about actually seeing these races out, but he seems to be hanging in there. Just a very significant update on our championship positions, because Perovano, we understand, has now dropped to 6th place, and in effect is well out of contention at that if Merkel manages to hang on to first position. And in fact, we understand that Perovano is pitted. This is obviously a tyre change. Let's keep the camera there. Look, they haven't got the pneumatic devices which enable the top works teams to make very quick tyre changes. This is suicidal. They're not going to get back in the race. It would have been better to have hung in there and tried to get some more points, but this is taking far too long. It'll be a lap down at least when Merkel flashes through again, and you really can't use fingers to put nuts and bolts back on when you're after a World Championship title. Absolutely futile pit stop, that.
I cannot believe that a team so professional and so organised can make such an enormous blatant blunder. This is just incredible.
Exactly. I remember seeing Goodfellow at Sugo. Sugo, he had a very quick pit stop which lasted only about a minute. And in Japan, Goodfellow conceded a 16-second lead, came in, changed tyres and still won. But I don't think that's going to be the situation with Perovano today.
Remember, this man, Fred Merkel, is still on wet tyres, front and rear. He's 13.9 seconds ahead of Malcolm Campbell. That's enough for him. Stefan Mertens is having a wonderful battle there with Campbell at the moment. He's the only one holding up the Bimota flag.
There's Perovano, Brian. He's down in 9th place. So he's lost 7 places, 8 places almost through that pit stop.
Yeah, but there's Campbell. He's only about just over half the length of the Concord Straight in behind Merkel, and I guess that Norris Farrow will be now telling Merkel You've got somebody on your tail, boss.
It's not just Campbell either. I can see Mertens right behind Campbell. This guy, there's Mertens. There's Mertens. He's right behind Campbell. So all of a sudden, Merkel's coming under pressure. Has he miscalculated his drive to the World Championship? Although these guys won't make any difference, he could be sacrificing first place here en route to that.
Knowing Merkel, I would know that he would want to go out with 2 wins on the last day. As he said, if it's not a win, is there any other place? This is the determination of this man here. Out of Stockton, California, 26 years of age, 3 times American Superbike champion Fred Merkel. This is the multinational road race champion, Malcolm Campbell of Australia, and he is hell-bent on a mission to take this last World Superbike race of 1988. He wants to take it from Merkel. I believe at this rate of knots that it's on the cards that he's going to do it. Merkel's in the braking area and so's Campbell, so that's only a distance of about 200 or 300 yards. There's Stefan Mertens from Belgium, round the inside, very tall man, tucked on this tiny little Italian motorcycle.
27 laps down and still 7 to go, and so Merkel's margin's not enough. It's not enough, and it'll be interesting to see how the points permutations work out here.
Campbell's going to catch him. I will bet money that Campbell is going to take victory in the last race here at Manfield. Merkel will be up on the dais with him, but certainly I do not believe in first position. Look at the ground that Campbell is making up on Merkel. This was touch and go. It went through the back of my mind before, and I really didn't want to say it, but I was genuinely worried of Merkel's choice of tyre.
Yes, we said this at the start of the race, and obviously he has made an error of judgment. It looked for so long that he'd made the right choice, but obviously not. There aren't enough puddles to keep those tyres cool now, and certainly Campbell and Mertens are going to overhaul Merkel, but with Tardozzi out of the running and Pirovano a lap down, Merkel should be safe.
Merkel wasn't ready for that one. He didn't know that Campbell was that close. That gave him quite a fright when he slipped by in there.
In fact, we've got the gap between Merkel in his newly demoted position there in third as they go onto the back straight. He's 1 minute and 18 seconds up on Pirovano, and in these changing conditions, could be very interesting.
We could well see Stefan Mertens up there for a win. He's closing in on Campbell. He's a very cool, calculated man. He's half a bike length back. There's Merkel in third.
Remember, Pirovano has fresh rubber, so although it looks as though he's way out of it, if he can come through the field like Campbell and Mertens, we could have real drama here.
At one stage of the game, Campbell was almost 20 seconds behind. In fact, I think it even went out to 24 seconds, and he gobbled it up. Mertens is looking over his shoulder. He's keeping an eye on Merkel. He must know that the American cannot fight back in the position he is in, or more to the point, his tyres are in.
So we've got 1 minute and 18 seconds separating the 2 World Championship candidates. It's going to be a very interesting closing few laps. If Pirovano's slicks are warmed up and he can cut 4 or 5 seconds a lap off Merkel's lap times, it's going to be interesting. And there's Pirovano. Pirovano has obviously been grass tracking to add insult to injury, and his machine won't start. It looks like he's going to be a retirement, so that's both Italians out of the action.
Calling for outside assistance there. This is the Italian.
It's all over, Brian. It's all over. Merkel, surely now world champion, as Malcolm continues his surge for the lead. Mertens hot on his heels, and Phyllis going very well in third there.
Brilliant ride coming from Phyllis.
You can see the look through Pirovano's visor. He's totally disillusioned. Like Tardozzi rather, he's really made a mess of this final round. Still be second in the championship, but obviously they all came here with one goal in mind. As they come round to start their final lap, Campbell leads Mertens. And it doesn't really matter where Merkel is at this stage. He'll have seen Pirovano coasting around.
And there's Mertens gone through. Mertens has taken Campbell. Campbell's up the inside. And there's a slower ride. Oh, what a brilliant dive through there.
Good fellow, Brian.
But Stefan Mertens of Belgium, a new race leader. This is the 3rd race leader we've had in the final round here at Manfield of the World Superbike Championship. Bike number 6, born in Spain, Stefan Mertens. Let's have a look at it again in slow-mo.
Yes, Goodfellow, the influencing factor here. They had to make up their minds which side they were going. And Mertens really pushes his way through, pushes Campbell out of the way and gets back on line before the infield hairpin. Campbell really lost out there as we go back on Campbell, the second place man.
Started down there with the checkered flag, and it's going to be an elated Stefan Mertens that takes the final round of the World Superbike Championship here at Manfield, ahead of number 3, Malcolm Campbell from Australia. That's certainly got to bring half a smile back on the Bermuda team's face, surely.
There's Merkel.
There is
5th position. Merkel finishes in 5th position, and he knows that's enough. He's got the first World Championship in the bag. It's not the way he would have liked to have done it, but they all count. So there's Merkel taking his somewhat subdued salute as he goes around the Manfield circuit.
He knows that it's happened, but I'll bet he can't believe it. Going to be a very excited American that makes that magic phone call back to his family in the United States in a few minutes' time. He's done Superbike racing and Honda and the United States very proud in the World Championship.
Well, our quick calculations at the end of that concluding leg give Merkel the title. Pirovano will finish in 2nd position, Tardozzi 3rd, Mertens 4th, Lucanelli 5th, and the Frenchman Vieira 6th. And there's the tyre, the full wet tyre that Fred Merkel, the new World Superbike Championship, he gambled on that. We all thought he'd made the wrong choice, but Fred knew otherwise. And here are the positions of the concluding leg of the 1988 World Superbike Championship. First, a win for Stefan Mertens. Second, Malcolm Campbell. And third, Rob Phillis. 4th place went to new world champion Fred Merkel. 5th, Robert Scollier from Australia. And 6th, Robert Dunlop from Ireland.
Fabrizio came in for a tyre change and then crashed.
He crashed?
Yeah.
Where's David?
David crashed on the warm-up lap.
They crashed on the warm-up lap. Why the hell didn't you tell me that? Jesus. Man, was I all over the racetrack.
We saw.
So that's serious. You really didn't know Tardozzi had come off on the...
I didn't know anything. All I knew is it was running at a wet racetrack and running out of tire awful fast. We gambled. We started with wet tires. The boys weren't too sure, and I said, look, the only way I think we're going to be able to do this because we don't have enough warm-up laps to break in some fronts, even intermediates. We got to go with the wets, and we got to get a good start, and we got to just haul. We got to get away from them, and it worked.
So, after the most dramatic day's racing of the 1988 World Superbike Series, here's what it means in the final analysis. World champion, the first World Superbike champion, Fred Merkel of America on 100 points. Second, Fabrizio Pirovano of Italy. And third, David Tardozzi, also of Italy. Both those riders, of course, failed to finish the race.
Coverage from the Rothmans World Superbike Championship round was presented in association with Global Sports and Promotions.
As you can see, the weather here at Manfield is not too hot today. It should cause quite a few problems for the leading riders. And with only 3 points separating the leading riders, Stefan Mertens and Fred Merkel, there should be some very close racing here for the final round of the World Superbike Championships. Here's how they lined up for the first leg. Riding bike number 1, Fred Merkel, the defending champion from America. From Tasmania, Mal Campbell riding the very fast Honda Australia RC30. Another very fast Australian, Michael Dowson, on the Team Marlboro Yamaha FZR 750R OW01. Stefan Mertens currently leading the World Championship table. He's from Belgium. The very hard-riding Englishman, Terry Reimer, top New Zealand rider Aaron Slight, he recorded the 3rd fastest time in practice. He's riding the very fast Kawasaki factory machine. French veteran Raymond Roche riding the Works Ducati bike number 27. From Canada, Steve Cravier riding Yamaha FZR 750. And the winner from Australia, Rob Phillips, riding the Kawasaki ZXR 750. Let's take a look now at the first leg. Fred Merkel had pole position, but there was less than half a second separating the first 6 riders on the grid. Rain had begun falling shortly before the race, causing last-minute panic as teams changed tyres to either intermediates or wets.
Australia, the Marlboro Yamaha team with that distinctive day-grey colour right back. Everyone attacks this safety around there. But it was Englishman Terry Reimer who got a flying start, pursued by Australians Michael Dowson and Rob Phillips. Within the first lap, the young Londoner Reimer had established an unchallengeable lead despite suffering from a hand injury, the result of a hard fall at last week's Oran Park Superbike round. On lap 3, Masterton rider Aaron Slight pushed his way through to 3rd place on the Team Australia Kawasaki. Fred Merkel was soon up to 4th place as the leading riders began to lap back markers. The combined talents of Raymond Roche and team manager Marco Lucanelli couldn't keep the Works Ducati in contention, and with Terry Reimer rapidly increasing his lead, the action was centred on the dice for 2nd place between the Kawasaki-mounted Aaron Slight and Rob Phillips, with the Kiwi rider taking Phyllis under braking at Coca-Cola. The wet conditions proved a disaster for